Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Expanse, Season 3, Episode 10. It's called Dandelion Sky. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. So we ended last one with Holden going for the centre, going for the nucleus, which actually reminds me, comments last week, everything you speculated about why things were being pulled towards the centre was nonsense, scientifically speaking.
Was it?
Yeah. You were theorizing that the smaller things were being pulled because they were smaller and lighter.
I stand by it.
Of course you would. So behold his eyes. Wait, he's left a message for Alex and Amos, right? So they have an idea of what he's doing. I mean, they don't really know what he's doing. They know he's left. They know where he's going. They don't really understand why he's doing it or what exactly he's doing. And the Martians are also paying attention. There's Drapers, in a ship with other Marines. They're on the way. They're trying to talk to him. They're trying to talk him out of what this is. And honestly, probably the bizarrest visual of the entire show is Miller just sort of floating next to him as they're going down, like just casually with his hat. He's not really there, so of course he doesn't need a suit or anything. But
Yeah,
it's
very surreal.
it's a visual. Well, we said that last week. We said the show's never been trippy, but if it's going to be trippy, now is the time. And it wasn't until the end.
Until it got to a point, and then it went full trippy.
Until Holden completed the sequence. More on that.
Yeah.
No, screw it,
Yeah.
let's just do that now. So,
Do you know what? It really reminds me of Mass Effect.
I could, yeah, no, the opening mission in Mass Effect at the end of that mission, yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, when your Shepard gets a glimpse of things. So yeah, Miller's whole thing was, and I say Miller, the being that is using Miller as a tool. Get into the center. They get to the edge of the center, and then it opens up. Right, it's very kind of like I want to compare it to something. The way it kind of like all the little parts start moving.
Yeah, it's a very mechanical hatch.
Yes, but it's almost like it's not nanobots, but it's almost like bigger nanobots, or just bots, I guess. You know what I mean? Like the way.
I get what you're saying. Like when nanobots kind of overlay out.
Yeah,
from each other.
it's like it's all the little parts form a whole, so that it's like a mesh that's all just kind of.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
But he goes in and it's this big tunnel and he gets to the centre and it's all very alien. And people are referencing in this episode constantly, they're joking about little green men coming out the other end. And Miller at one point, when they get down at the bottom, or on the way down, he mentions that there used to be a civilization here, but that's long gone. And I'm like, oh, we were talking about that, like, whatever sent this thing out, is that civilization even there anymore? But the way he said that, though, it got me pondering in another direction. It makes me wonder if if the protomolecule was sent out because the civilization was already dying. If this was like a restart function, almost.
Could be a lifeboat.
Yeah, like a reboot. Like, the life forms themselves won't come with it, but their society will continue on in some way.
No, it's possible. Or there are some life forms just in like a cryo sleep sort of thing.
Yeah, cryosleep might be the right term. Given the way that it's kind of absorbed Miller and Julie, it's more like it's in the coding.
Yeah, could be.
If this is technology,
that's the point. You mentioned there, the being pretending to be Miller, and Holden kind of reaches a breaking point and questions that, but it seems like he is Miller to some extent.
Yeah, it's almost like. Kind of like how last week it was like, oh, he keeps being reborn for the purpose. It's almost like the next time he's reborn, they actually just let more of Miller go through. And when he talks about Julia this time, like, and dying with her, it feels genuine. It feels like it's actually him recounting his story.
It does, because afterwards Holden's like, all right, it's good to see you, Miller. Like, it's like, okay, he acknowledges that there's enough of him here that it is him on some level.
Yeah, and of course by this point the Marines show up and they try and shoot him, and the protomolecules having none of that.
Just stops all the bullets in midair.
To the point where the part of the wall starts like forming outwards, and they're all like, "What the hell is this?" And one of the guys throws a grenade, and then protomolecule don't like that either, so
and it decimates him.
Yeah, absorbs them, like decimates them, like eviscerates them, pulls them apart, and then absorbs
flays
them.
him essentially.
Yeah. And then absorbs them into the floor. And what I thought was funny, this actually almost made me laugh a little bit, because right before this happened, before they started shooting, Holden said, "It doesn't want to hurt us," and then the next thing it does. Now, admittedly, it was provoked, but I just thought it was
Yeah,
funny.
it's self-defense, arguably.
Yeah, but it was just funny that he said it doesn't want to hurt us, and then the very next thing it does is it eviscerates someone and absorbs them.
Yeah, well, I mean, they shot first.
Yeah, sure. So he puts his hand in the thing to complete the sequence, and obviously this the being, the protomolecule, the technology has no problem like forming things. So the way I read this in terms of he needs to complete the sequence is that a life form has to like complete the sequence of some way, something biological perhaps, something sentient maybe, even to go one step further.
I don't know if it needs to be sentient. I feel like it needs the life to go through
Yeah.
it. Like, there's some sort of chemical, because he refers to it as a circuit, and obviously, we all know we can complete a circuit if we put our finger in
That
it.
no, this is true. But why does it have to have Holden be willing? It could grab anyone and put them in there if it wanted to.
Um, that's fair.
So my thinking is that the person who completes the circuit has to be a willing life form.
Maybe.
Because there's nothing to stop them from grabbing a marine and just be like, "Hey, you put your hand in."
I wonder if it's just down to the link it's got with Holden. It feels like it's connected on some level, and it's this is maybe what it
It could
deems
be that, yeah. It
the
could be
most successful way to do it.
it could be the connection with Holden that means that it's him. But I'm wondering if the connection is what convinces him, because then it can convince him to be willing. I don't know.
But here's the thing: can it physically force them to do anything? Because as it points out, Miller's not really there.
We've seen protomolecule grab people repeatedly.
Well, yeah, but proton molecule itself in the past, definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe once the proton molecule has them, it corrupts them to a point where they're no longer viable. They're already, because they're already part of the system, so that it doesn't work for whatever reason.
Well, yeah, but we've seen it physically grab people, and it can physically, if it didn't want to corrupt them, it could just not do its thing. Just
it's
grab
true.
them and pull them in. So I'm thinking there's more to it than just it has to be biological life form that completes the sequence. There has to be something more to it than just that.
No, it could be, yeah.
That'd be my guess, just based on the fact that Miller, Proto Miller, has to talk him into it and bring him down. And here's a little touch that I really liked about this is when they get down at the bottom and they get there inside the chamber, he's like, "Oh, by the way, I've given you atmosphere. You can take your helmet off." And Miller does check it on his helmet. He's looking at the readings, and he's still kind of like, "You know what? Still too weird. I'm not going to do it, just to be safe."
Yeah, he acknowledges. He looks at it and acknowledges that he could, but chooses not to anyway.
This is the polar opposite from every other space story, where people are far too willing to just pop their helmets off.
Yeah, and this is a case where, like I say, his thing says he can.
Yes, he's checked. He's actually checked with an instrument, but he's still. You know what? Just a case. I'm just gonna play it safe. So I like that. I like that moment. But he puts his hand in, and then we get the sequence.
Yeah.
The sequence with lots of things. There's lots of some of it feels like he's reliving the memories that this thing has been through. Coming from Venus, that kind of is there, and it rewinds.
Especially the early stuff in this sequence.
Yeah. And then he's kind of floating, and he's kind of like static, and he's naked, and all the rest of it. So, if anything, we kind of joked last season when the hybrid was burned up in the thruster. It looked very 2001, the way it was sort of formed and shaped. This reminded me again of kind of 2001, the way all this stuff looked.
I agree. The way it was presented, all the newborn sort of imagery.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But the interesting part to me that stuck out here.
That what was interesting. I don't know what you noticed that I didn't.
Cutting some of that out, that went on too long. So, but the part that stuck out to me was when it looked still at the ring. It's still at the inside of the ring, but it was like the Connect 4 with all the different, because it was like everything he was doing then became this cluster of energy, whether that's like our universe or galaxy or whatever, right? And then all these circles with seemingly, again, other galaxies or other universes, wherever we're going with this. It was like, no, this is one of many. There's other
That's what I
chunks.
took as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
this was a. Yeah, I wasn't quite willing to go to universe. I thought maybe galaxy.
Galaxy's probably more likely, but it was just there's other. This felt like no. This thing is not just a gateway to one place. There are many doors you might go through here
Yeah,
potentially,
yeah,
which would line
definitely.
up with the Expanse as a title.
It would. I mean, one technically would, but I mean, one door definitely. That's still an expanse
Oh, it absolutely is, but you can expand. You now have a passageway to all of the universe, like through all these doors, like
theoretically.
theoretically.
We're assuming. Well, it's presented. It's pretty vague. We don't really know for
Oh, sure.
sure.
We're we're taking some images here and try to deconstruct them and like, or it could just be simply be a map of where this thing has been.
It could be, yeah.
That this could just be the newest location in a long line.
It might not
That's a
even
possibility.
be, it might not be saying, "Oh, you can go here." It's more just no knowledge that you're not alone. Like that there is other places.
Oh yeah, because we end with Holden waking up and kind of like being a bit, we'll just say disorientated a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder if it's where all the places they sent protomolecule to when they were dying as a species.
Hmm.
All the places they sent one of these to, all the galaxies that they tried to send one of these lifeboats or whatever they are. And this is going. These are all of them. You're just. This is just happens to be the one that you're at.
Uh, yeah, very possibly. Um, I don't know. Like, or at the very least, do all these other places have a ring? And the rings all can communicate with each other, and that's like what we're seeing here. Which again would maybe tie into the being doors, the idea that you could go into other
Yeah,
rings. But like it was just like, immediately it was like, okay, we are. And I don't do this intentionally, or I kind of do, but I don't mean it as a pun. But we're really expanding the scope of the show at this point. Like,
yeah, definitely.
we're not only are we talking openly about first contact and aliens. It's like no. Here's a passageway potentially to going to other places, and what are we going to find? Is there going to be other alien life out there to talk to? Is it already dead? Is it more emptiness? But there's so many goddamn books past the point we're at. I have to imagine there's something, whether it's other life forms or something that we can revolve stories around.
Mm. No, definitely. There's got to be something, otherwise there's no point.
Yes.
I mean, even this, there's something here, like already, like this place has already got so much mystery that we
Oh
just have
sure,
no
yeah.
idea about.
Yes. The ring is full of mystery, and it's on. Because this is the thing, everyone's after Holden, but it's on Holden's side. It's protecting Holden. And there's a point where he's almost going too fast, and Mel's no. Remember what I told you about going too fast? You know.
Yeah, yeah, I think it says that you're no good to me if you get squashed,
And that
whatever it
was the
is.
other thing we're talking about, because he actually calls this records. They need to get into the records, and he can't get in there without the sequence being complete. So this, that maybe backs up the idea this is all the places that either this protomolecule's been, or other places where it currently is, and it's communicating with those.
Yeah, maybe it's as well. We're speculating. Okay, maybe it's a lifeboat of the species,
Yeah.
and the records are okay. It's for whatever reason they're locked down. It can only access things it's absorbed since it's been reactivated. But once it's unlocked, all the things that it had, when they sent it off, all the people that were in there are kind of free in this world again.
Define what you mean by free.
I mean, they're still part of this place, but um, at the moment, the ring can only access a few things, that it's absorbed since it's got here, like Miller. Whereas the people who it's saying,
Okay, right. Okay, so it's unlock the code so now the ring can access everyone.
yeah,
Right.
and
Okay.
have them be aware in some capacity, in the same way that we're seeing Miller is definitely aware in some capacity of who he is.
And if you're right about that, that would mean there's alien presence in there now that could
Yes.
theoretically use to communicate with people. So that's interesting. There's
Yeah,
potential.
it's almost like it's not quite alive, more of a digital copy of a consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like, I don't know if I've established exactly how the proton, when it absorbs someone, is it just copying who they were into its system, or is it actually just absorbing who they are in essence?
Yeah. No, I say copy like, because it no longer manifests Miller as a real thing. It's a projection into Holden's mind, essentially. Like Miller says, rewiring all the synapses.
Yeah, just pushing the right buttons, as he also puts it.
Exactly. So it is. I feel like it's more of a copy of, okay, no, this is all the information on this person, and it's recreated by through this, rather than just being the original.
Yeah, but as he puts it, everything we see is just pushing the right buttons.
No, that's fair.
So at
No,
that
that's
point,
fair.
it's like, well, I mean, is that any different from the
Well,
reality we actually?
no, no, you're right, and it begs
Yeah,
the question. Then, I mean, or the extension of that to me is Miller alive? This version here, is he alive? If he's thinking, and he can, he has thoughts, because he is Miller. Is Miller still alive in some capacity?
yeah, it's complicated. It's
It is.
relationship status. It's complicated. That is,
Yeah,
life
yeah,
status. It's complicated, right?
yeah.
That's where we are with Miller right now, and Julie as well, seemingly. Um, so, so no, big bombastic sci-fi ideas. This is really starting to blow up in terms of like the wacky stuff we can do. Um, Obviously, the other main plot I would say is on the UN ship with Anna, and Tilly and Clarissa, who someone actually did put in the comments. We did hear about Julie having a sister named Clarissa, and kind of just like a sort of brief passing in previous seasons. It's been brought up, but obviously we never met her yet. It wasn't like a big plot point at the time.
Yeah.
But there was like, if on a rewatch, you'll notice the name being dropped here or there, which is kind of cool actually. I like that a
No,
lot.
it is. I don't think last week it was a surprise to us that there was a sister.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like that maybe that was somewhere in my mind. The name definitely wasn't in my mind though.
yeah. But it was a nice touch. It's a nice touch. So yeah, but there's other bits here or there with other things. Obviously, the Behemoth, Ashford's kind of giving Drummer some shit about letting Naomi go,
Yeah,
and it's kind of boiling up to what we've seen, like this tension of like him clearly wanting to be captain, constantly calling her out in front of everyone. Diogo even, and maybe even surprising from Ashford is when Diogo suggests you should be captain, he kind of shuts him down. You're treading on,
yeah. But then Drummer kind of calls him on that. She says, I bet as soon as I was gone, you were
yeah,
full of praise for me. Because then they'll go, oh, it's just what you had to do.
yeah.
So was that all a move as well?
Very possibly. He does get very serious with Diogo in that scene, which I thought was interesting.
He does, yeah.
But he's a very lively past by the sounds of it. Lost his only
Oh, yeah.
child, and he's seen friends, be
Yeah, he said
spaced.
he lost his child in the fire. I assume that's why his face is all scarred and burnt
Yeah,
on
very
that one
possibly. Yeah,
side. I assume that was that incident.
very possibly. That said, though, he's a sort of character where if you told me he's been in several fire incidents, it would not surprise
Yeah,
me.
no, I thought it's fair.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe he got burned in that time because he was a bit more dangerous trying to get his
Yeah,
child
I feel like
back.
it's probably the desperation, to go caught up too long.
Very, very, very possibly. But Drummer, calls him out on all this stuff, and he wants to try and work it out. But so there's definitely tension there on the Behemoth. And then we'll get a little bit of Naomi, try to get towards the Rassi, try to call out to them. Obviously, we know their comms are shot, which is why they're not responding to her.
Yeah, the Martians are like, nah, we got this.
Yeah, they tell her to go away, but obviously she's not agreeing to that. But there's not much of her in this, but there's not a lot of Alex, and there's one great scene between Alex and Amos, about Amos again not really feeling fear, and how Alex is like, oh, I'd love to live a life without fear, and he's like, no, you wouldn't. I like how self-aware Amos is about how weird he is. Like he knows how disconnected he is to everyone else.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm not sure if he always has been, or if it's just something he's kind of become aware of over time.
Yeah, he's maybe learned it over certainly since the start of the show and his relationships with Naomi and Holden and the crew. But like I like that he's aware how sociopathic he
Yeah.
he is.
And that's what I mean. I don't know if he's been aware of that for a long time, and we're only just learning that he's that aware because he just didn't feel comfortable trusting these people for so long. You know, it wasn't that he was only discovering it since we've started the show with hit that point in his journey, but more he just hasn't been telling anyone up till recently.
I think there's definitely been part of the journey. I mean, maybe he's already been self-aware before the start of the show, but I think there's definitely been an advancement of that
Yeah,
uh, since the start of the show. Certainly, but no, it was a really nice scene between those two crewmates. I think one of the benefits of only having the four core crew is that they all have really strong relationships with each other. It's not like in some other shows when there's maybe like 10 crew members where, oh, there's a lot of good relationships in this group of 10, but it's not like every single character has a relationship with every other character.
yeah, not to the extent that these guys do.
Yeah, but because there's only four of them, like every single possible pairing has something to
Yeah,
offer, and that's really nice. But the other main plot in the episode, though, of course, is on the UN ship with Anna, and how this
Lieutenant.
lieutenant comes up to her and has concerns. He shares the same faith as she does, and he's like, "Oh, do you think God wants us to be out here?" He's clearly concerned, and obviously, I wasn't necessarily thinking that the episode was going to go where it went with him specifically, but my inkling in that first scene with the both pair of them, where she's basically ignoring him, and eventually says, "Hey, I'm busy right now. Go away, son." Well, she wants to bask in it. We're going through the ring, and everyone's
She just fobs him off, though.
yeah. I'm like, okay, she's clearly not paying attention around her, and she's too excited by the prospect of what she's doing. When they first go through the ring, she's like, oh, let's not talk about probes yet. Let's enjoy this for a minute. And she's looking at the map, and
And then you get another shot of the lieutenant just looking uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, what's he going to do?
yes, and we obviously get the suicide. We get the zero G. So I mean, obviously they've all got the mag boots on, but when he shoots himself, the blood just starts to
Float.
It's kind of beautiful, but and that makes it essentially dark when I say it that way. But it is like just like
Visually, yeah.
visually the intention, the blood floating is kind of a dark beauty to it. But obviously she finds out and she sees who it is, and she's like, oh wait, he asked for help and I ignored him. The entire purpose of me being here is to be someone who can speak to people and listen to them and help them with their fears and their concerns, and I wasn't doing that. And maybe this will be like a small step in the path of realizing how she's kind of neglecting her own family by making the choice to come in this trip in the first place when she didn't have to. She had the choice of turning around and going home.
Yeah, definitely.
So her and Tilly kind of winged their way into this trip. But yeah, so that was sort of Anna's side of the story. Some character stuff there with that. And even just again going back to the idea that we had last episode of like some of the crew here are actually terrified of being here. They don't want to be here.
Of course they are. Yeah, well, we got that of course with some of the the civilians last episode, and the military. Just because they're military doesn't mean they're not scared. They just didn't have the choice to leave.
Yeah, because obviously the one guy tries to sneak out last episode. Then this episode, of course, he shoots himself. But the other side of this, of course, is we have Clarissa sneaking about, and she keeps trying to like, oh, can I get to the Rassi before the Martians? Impossible. Oh, the Rassi's changed course. Can I do it now? Still impossible. It's not happening. And then she gets caught. Basically, she's walking past, and Tilly sees her like, Clarissa, and she walks off, and then she brings this up to Anna. And she's like, no, you should trust your gut. It's like, oh, you don't know me very well. But she goes and talks to her. And we end the scene in a cliffhanger because she bites the steroid, I will call it, for lack of a better term. She juices. And so clearly she's in danger, and we know what this can lead to. But she's not willing to let her go. And I thought it was interesting that immediately before this, she'd clearly kind of made the choice of like, oh, she's not getting away now, because like she immediately started speaking about, oh, Holden must pay for what he's done, because Tilly's like, hey, like just because your father did all this stuff doesn't mean you're guilty of anything. I'll hook you up with my lawyer. We can talk about this. You don't have to hide anymore. So it's doing some of this stuff.
It's worth noting she was looking at the blast radius for if we destroyed the Rocinante. What's the no survival zone? Where how far away do we need to be?
Yeah, if she's even hell bent on surviving herself.
Yeah, maybe she's not. I feel like I don't know. Maybe I'm just assuming this because she's a Mao. But
No,
That
that's
she's
fair.
got that survival instinct in her.
She's definitely veering towards extremist. She was trying to blow up stuff. She's already extremist, but I mean more like here the way she started like speaking very devout of, oh no, he must be like, pay for what he's done.
Yeah.
It started to feel very like she doesn't really care about if she survives or not. She's got a goal, and if it means suicide bombing into it, then she's probably willing to do so.
No, that's fair.
Because what was she doing here when she was tinkering with the ship exactly?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Was she rigging this ship to blow in some capacity? I'm not
Oh,
sure.
maybe, yeah.
But hey, she's up to no good for certain. Um, no, this was a very trippy episode that really expanded upon what the show might be leading to.
Yeah.
I've been saying this every single week, but I am so glad the show's been saved because it feels like we're building to something huge.
I'm kind of terrified as to what this season's going to end on. Because I know that the thing is, before it was when it was in danger, they kept reassuring us, no, this season ends in a comfortable place, right? It's not on a big huge cliffhanger. And I'm
not in a cliffhanger. I feel like it'll end with like all these possibilities opening up, though.
Right, and I'm just like, okay, but how do we get to that point where I can even feasibly see it being okay? That worked.
I feel like it's one of these things though where it only works because it has to work. I feel like we'll get to the end of this season and go, okay, I can see how that would have felt like a nice open ending had we not getting any more. But since I know we're getting it, I'm so glad it didn't end there.
No, definitely. I definitely know what you mean by that. But I'm just intrigued as to how do we get to that stage in 3 episodes?
Yeah,
from
three
here.
left, yeah.
And it's like, okay, because it feels like we're just on the verge of blowing everything open. And I'm like, okay, how do you get to at the end of the season and leave me going, do you know what? I didn't need more. I can't fathom that.
Well, luckily we're getting more, so we don't have to obsess over it too much. But no, all that trippy stuff at the end, that last couple of minutes of the insanity, and I'm sure it's one of those things where if we go back and watch that again with more context later, there'll probably be more little clues in there for stuff that's coming up.
Yeah, I've never looked at the Reddit for the Expanse. I assume they've gone over it frame by frame already.
Probably. I think it's worth probably staying away from things like that if you've not read the books, because there's probably too much of the book information sneaking around.
It depends how good they, because I know like Reddit, like the Game of Thrones, they have one that's TV only, no book spoilers, no book talk whatsoever, and then one that's just free for.
Maybe, yeah, I could see that. But no, I'm intrigued by everything we saw in that montage that Holden saw and has now in his head. And it makes me wonder, like, what does Holden know exactly? I mean, obviously, we saw kind of what he saw, but
how does he interpret it?
How does he interpret it? And I'm almost wondering if he has more information than we do, just in, like, as he was seeing this, does he understand
Some of it just made sense to him.
Yeah, because it's been beamed into his head, does he understand it in a level we just, we can't just from seeing these visuals?
And, I think it's worth noting as well as, was he supposed to be seeing this, or was this just a byproduct of completing the circuit?
That's a good point, yeah. Is it a byproduct, or does it want him to know this so he can then communicate with others about it in some capacity?
I mean, especially the idea of it being memories, it almost feels like, okay, no, here's we're updating, since we were last online, here's what's happened.
Actually, I want to talk a little bit about when Holden... There's the question of free will comes up in this episode when he's talking to Miller, and Miller kind of implies like, oh no, we're all just tools in the overall scheme of things, including you, and he's like, oh, but what about free will? I've always believed in this pesky little thing called free will, and he says, yeah, coming from the guy who always finds himself right next to these big situations, you're the poster child for the impossible. And beating the odds kind of thing. It's like you always end up there. You should probably just lean into that and stop pretending that you have a choice from being away from it.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. It's interesting, if this thing doesn't believe in free will, that there is more of a grand design. It maybe lands a lot more credence to why we have someone like Anna who is religious coming along for the ride. If this sort of leans into, it's not just about science and not just about where we are in the universe, but also that there is some sort of grand design to things.
There's a plan of sorts.
Yes. And whether that is some sort of biblical entity, not in the way we would maybe look at it from any of the religions that come from Earth, but is there some sort of mastermind behind all this, or is it just a simple case of there was a species that was around much, much before everything else, and because they're so old, it feels that way? Where do we go with that
It
side
could
of
be.
things?
I'd love, I always love the stories of, those sorts of species that were, we assume, oh, okay, maybe that's why the inspiration for gods for humans, right?
Mm.
But do they have their own religion? Do they have gods? Because religion as a social structure formed by the need for community and the need to have something to answer questions that we couldn't. And any developing society would have to have gone through that stage at some point in its history. So did they have their own gods, their own myths? And how far back can it go? Like, the concept of God, was it never inspired by something more? Did it just come from somewhere? Maybe their God isn't up above. I think that's the reason so many people think, oh, God, or whatever the gods were maybe some form of ancient life, is because it's always God is above in so many religions, right? So it's, it came from the sky, but in some sort of alien culture where that didn't potentially happen, is it completely different?
Yeah, I think that's why we have Anna as a character. I think it's going to be not just like blowing our minds in terms of science, but asking some questions, or maybe pretending to have answers to questions that maybe call into question some of her faith, and we're going to explore things with that at the very least.
That said, I think it's interesting that in this very episode she points out, I think it said her father used to quote it, there's two types of scripture. I think creation and what was the other one? I can't remember, but the point was the point was there were two different theories, and if they don't line up, it just means that you don't understand them entirely yet.
Yeah, you don't
So
understand.
it's not
Yeah.
that they contradict; it's that there's more information that you don't know yet. So I feel like she would actually be very accepting based on that logic, that even if this doesn't line up and it contradicts what she thinks she knows and what she thinks she believes, it means that, okay, no, there's just more she doesn't know, and she has to rework that into her religion.
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like now if this protomolecular device believe in some sort of grand plan, maybe we're interpreting that as a religious type of thing because that's how we would think about it. Maybe it's not the way that sees it. Maybe it's just it's not it wouldn't use the word destiny. It would just simply be there's a plan. It's in place. Maybe to this thing that is science.
It might well be, yeah.
It's math. It's just this is the outcome. It's going to set up and then it's going to pay off like this. This is how it's going to build. Yeah. It's inevitable, not through destiny or fate or any of these kind of sort of wishy-washy ideas.
It's just the way things are.
Yeah, and that could be an interesting thing to explore.
It could, yeah.
To this thing, is the outcome of the universe as simple as physics? I say simple. Physics isn't simple, but you know what I mean. Like it's hardlined. It's definite. There's rules. Yeah. There's consequences.
I get what you mean.
So. It's fascinating. So the ideological sort of ideas that are going to come in, because religion I don't think played as big a role earlier on in the show.
No, it was kind of mentioned here or there.
Yeah.
Obviously, season 2 when we had the big ship which is now the Behemoth, of course. That was the religious ship. So it kind of started being brought up around there.
Yeah. So it'll just be interesting to see sort of the different themes that this will now touch upon from this thing beyond just the unknown, but then arguably the unknown is like I feel like people use the phrase the unknown to talk about unexplored space, but I think in terms of like the idea of God and who created us, and if there's answers to that, that's also the unknown.
Religion is an extension of the unknown, right?
So, and what does the unknown make us do? To try either try to understand it, to worship it, or to all these different things.
Right, it's like, let's say I believe that there is alien life out there, because mathematically speaking, the probability is, there's probably life. Right?
I would concur with that. Universe is a pretty big place.
Yeah.
So far there has been no proof that alien life exists, but the universe is a very big place.
Amazon's Alexa has us covered there.
What was she saying?
Oh,
I didn't. I got that
It, it,
she was talking about alien life, but I didn't hear what she said about it.
it said, so far there's been no proof that alien life exists, but the universe is a very big place. So it got you covered. Amazon's got your back, Pete.
It's good to know that our artificial intelligence is on board with my line of thought.
my point where I was going with that is I believe that, yeah, there's probably some alien life out there. But that is still the unknown, right?
Oh yeah,
I don't know that. But for Anna, she things that she believes add up to say, no, there must be a God. So it's no different in the way that you process that information. It's just a different conclusion.
No, I mean I agree. I mean I think there's a slight difference in.
The difference is I'm taking hard facts as numbers, and she is taking experiences over human history and adding them up. And her conclusion is what she's reached. And
sure, I get the logic behind what you're saying here. I just I guess as an atheist, I'm having a hard time comparing, like.
Well, no, exactly. I'm not saying the two views necessarily coexist. It's just the way the human mind reaches its beliefs. Because again, like I say, the fact that I think there's alien life out there is a belief, because there is no hard proof. It's a probability, but it's still ultimately a belief.
Hey, so yeah, Expanse, making us talk about big ideas, because it's, and obviously we're talking about the unknown. What does the unknown lead to? It leads to mystery, and what is mystery if not something immensely enjoyable to talk about, think about, explore, and makes an excellent basis for a bit of a story, maybe amongst a bunch of characters who are both in a book and in a TV show. So there you go. There's the key. There's the key to success of the Expanse in a nutshell. On top of
Mystery.
the fancy sci-fi visual effects and science.
No, but I think it's true. Most good stories have a mystery of some sort.
That is true. That is true. Hell, even bad good stuff like The Room, there's definitely mystery you're feeling as you're watching that.
It's a mystery to how it exists.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. So there you go. That is episode 10 of The Expanse season 3. We'll be back next week, of course, with episode 11. We get 3 episodes left of the season. Obviously, it's building up to something insane. Will Naomi meet up with the Rassi? Will Holden make any sense when he starts speaking next week? How is Draper? Is Draper now scared of Holden? In fact, as just one point, I like that Draper was sticking up for Holden. She admitted that when they tried to speak to him that he sounded batshit insane, but she was sticking up for him other than that, and wanted to try and diffuse the situation as best she could.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I appreciate that.
And of course, will Tilly survive her encounter with Clarissa?
Yes. What else is someone named Tilly in? I'm hearing Tilly.
It's Star Trek Discovery, right?
Yes, there's a Tilly in that. There you go.
She's a Tilly, right? I'm not.
Yes, no, Tilly. Yeah, big red hair. That's the Tilly. Yeah.
Thought so.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Every time I say Tilly, I'm thinking someone else named Tilly.
It's because we said that, like a few months ago, we were saying that name quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching and listening. Like, subscribe, let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments, all the usual stuff. Get us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support the channel. There's a link in the description. But that is us. So thank you once again. We'll see you next time. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?